Hey, this is Steven from LegitTechTutorials, and welcome back to Beginning Maya. So I have a couple updates for you guys. So I'm going to tell you guys how that, because in the video I'm going to just crop out the timeline at the bottom. So what you do here is go to Display UI Elements and unclick the time slider, the range slider, the command line, the help line. So these here, unclick those, and then when we're ready to go ahead and click those back. So remember that these are the one where you got them from. And another thing is to get this view box back, you go to Renderer, and then you just go to Legacy, just do Legacy Default. And there you see that we got the view cube back. So this is how you could change views, etc., etc., rotate, and I don't think we're going to do too much on the in the 2.0 render engine. So what do I want to do in this tutorial? So in this tutorial we're going to go over in my class I went over, rendering just standard primitives, what was called still life rendering, but that was kind of boring and they weren't our own, they were just primitives. So let's go ahead and go over how to model, how to mess around and modify some of these primitives. So let's start out with a cube. Arrow. So it's a polycube. And then let's do Nurbs sphere. Alright, so as you see here, these are both green. Now what you can do is you'll see up here that there's something called component mode. So if you click on component mode, it turns it into blue. And these guys are the holes. So what we could do is we could mess with the control vertex. By the way, I'm right clicking. You could right click and go from object mode, green mode, to actually selecting which one you want to do. Sorry, that was actually the control vertexes. So here we could go this way and actually modify the sphere. And we could just drag and click, do bounding box, which is you just left click and drag the bounding box. And we could, change these, scale them, W, what is this? WER, right? QWER. Right now I'm doing the R, the size tool. And then, we got movement tools, we got rotate tool, whatever you want to do. Now let's compare this to this type of mode. So let's go ahead and right click. So I'm probably going to be doing this. It's a lot quicker than going all the way up here and selecting it here. So I'm just going to usually right click and go vertex. And see here, these are actually at the... Okay, I'll explain what each of these are here in a second. I was about to give you a terminology that you haven't quite learned yet. So it's a lot easier. I'm hitting Control Z here to bring it back to its original position. Now, so these are vertexes, which is the corner of intersection of what are called edges. So let me show you an edge. See how these are highlighting red? Red means that you're about to select it, so this is an edge. And then the thing that's actually rendering is a face. So this is a face, right? So here we can move the face. We can select multiple faces by hitting Shift and clicking. You don't have to hold Shift the whole time. Just press Shift and hold it before you click. And then you could select everything. So now you see I basically selected the whole box. As well as, you could bounding box it or whatever you want to do. You see I didn't select the bottom one. But it's going to move the whole thing with it. So, yet again, vertex is the corners. Edge is the lines that connect the vertexes to the corners. And then you have 4 lines that represent a face most of the time. Alright, so you see that there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of difference between a a poly workflow, modeling workflow, and a Nurbs workflow. I mean, there's a lot, you know, this is a control vertexes, and they're a little bit harder to judge what exactly is going to happen. So I'm just going to take this guy and put in a new one. So it's a lot harder to judge what will actually happen. And these are holes here. And here I selected this hole, so I mean this is kind of like a modifier here. But this is basically what a hole is a hole is that center section. See where the subdivisions are? So these are subdivisions here. Also, I didn't really talk about changing the input. So here are basically the subdivisions here for polys. So subdivision is how many times it is cut. And the reason why it's distorting like that is that even though it doesn't look like it, I've actually modified the cube. Oops. I want a poly cube. Why? There we go. Okay. So let's go back. So you go into the inputs. And let's say that we want the subdivisions to be 2, 2, 2. Now you see that there is a cut. There's 4 faces now. But a very important thing to notice is that when you're modeling with polygons, you want to have 4 vertexes per face. See how this is 4? So they call that a quad. So you want to have a quad. Quads make for good modeling. They keep a lot of they make it smooth and keep a lot of what's called faceting, where it's like you have sharp edges that aren't supposed to be there, especially when you do character modeling. Now, same thing with this guy. You could change the spans, which is basically, you know, the jargon that they use for Nurbs. And also, you could preset the radius. Another quick thing that I wanted to go over. So, if you click on the actual what's called a attribute, so this is a attribute and this is a value. Something like that. I can't remember the exact name for it. If you hit the middle mouse button in the screen, you could actually scroll back and forth from left to right. And it only works from left to right. If I keep it as still as possible, go up to down, you notice that it only works left to right. As well as entering it in. So yeah, another big thing also that Nurbs has is lines here. So let's say that I wanted a square. And then basically what I could do, that was the EP curve tool. So basically what it does is it rounds it. For example, let's say I just did a square. Got rid of this EP curve. So basically what I could do is take all the sides, edit, duplicate, and then what we could do is we could go into surfaces. We could do something, where is that? Surfaces, and what we could do is a loft. Not really the prettiest loft. I might be selecting them in the wrong order, but we'll go over that later. So this is the toolbar for the surfaces. Basically, they're totally different from each other. Polygons and Nurbs are so different that probably start out the easiest to work with is definitely polys. It's a lot easier to manipulate objects. Nurbs are for very like objects that you could usually draw with lines are very, very good with Nurbs. I mean, you can draw these curves and then create, what you can do is you could go into, for example, if I had a square, right? I could go into surfaces and I could hit this box that I did here, and I could tell it to output polygons here, output geometry as polygons, and then I could create polygons. So like I said, it all depends on what you want to do, whichever one you like best, and you could go back into edit, and you could do, what was it? Is it under edit or modify? Yeah, modify here. Convert nerbs to polys, or polys to nerbs. Also, another thing I forgot to go over, there's actually 3 smoothing options. So for a poly, you have 1 which is unsmooth, 2 is basically a smooth preview, and you see like the lattice almost of the non-smooth. And so this is as smooth as it gets. And the reason why it's not super smooth is because I add more subdivisions. When you add subdivisions, you could add more detail into it. So now you see that there's more detail. So let's say I wanted to make it a little more smooth. You just take those sides in. Let's say I wanted to keep going. Holding the shift key so I could press so I could select multiple edges, and I'm right clicked and looked for edges and selected edges. So now when I bring it together, it'll start smoothing out, and then you just keep going on it. I mean, you know, so now that I got this good, I could do the sides, and then this side's gonna bow out, so I'll do that again to get exactly what you want. If you want, of course, if you wanted to start off with a sphere, then go with a sphere, but you know, you could basically get anything that you want out of this program. And just a quick random render there, so that's just the render. You see here that this is actually a preview of it unsmoothed. When you render and you haven't smoothed yet, it will show you the unsmoothed option. If you want to do that, you go back to object mode. You're going to go into polygons, and you're going to go into edit mesh. Actually put these names here. Mesh. And then we're going to go into smooth. Where is it at? There it is. So now if I do 1, it doesn't really change much of anything. So now if I do render, now you see it's got the smooth preview. Alright, so this is kind of a look at the different workflows of each of them. And basically what you'd have to use these tools up here, or the tools in here, to actually be able to mess around with Nurbs. Now, I particularly don't work with Nurbs too much, so I won't be able to tell you too much about it, but we'll go over it to where you understand it. But I really think that the power is in the actual polygons. But we will do a lot with Nurbs when we are just messing around with the render engine, etc., etc. Because these control points are enough, as well as isoforms, which is basically like a cross section anywhere here, where you could, loft things or extrude from there. Yeah, so I hope you get a little insight on the two separate the two separate modeling workflows on there. Yeah, and you don't really use Vertex face too much. So it's Vertex, face, and edge are what you're going to use. And this guy, we're going to use Control Vertex, as well as drawing, circles and lofting them upwards and beveling and all that stuff that you see here under surfaces. Right here, Loft, Planar. Planar is basically, you have a box. Actually, let me try that, see if I can get that to work. Alright, I'm just going to go surfaces, Planar. Yep. So it just puts a bottom on the box on a square surface or a round surface. It's just a draw. It just covers it with a surface. And you see it actually flipped it over because I'm guessing the normals are facing a different way. So silver is the top side and black is the flip side. Alright, so yeah, next tutorial, well, later on we'll go into actually creating something and working on rendering it, adding some color, this and that. So just wanted to get you familiar with the workflows and the things that we're going to be working with, and how to modify it, so you can go ahead and mess around and get a feel with this. But we are going to be working with our own primitives and working to create some objects with them. Alright, so it's been Steven from LegitTechTutorials. I'd like to thank you for watching this primer on, I guess it's a primer on editing and modifying primitives in Maya, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe for more videos like it in this series and other series as well. Any questions, email me. I'm going to be eventually finding a reference book for this series for those people that want to see one, and I will have that in the description. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next video. Peace.